We are live. I am so excited to be here today because today we are talking about what to do when you're worried about limited resources. So, give me the next few minutes and I'm going to give you 4 tips for eliminating resource scarcity at your nonprofit. Give me a yes in the chat. Whether you're watching the replay or watching this live, I want to know if you want to get rid of resource scarcity. So, if you're facing resource limitations, you're struggling with money, you don't have the tools you need, fear not, because I'm going to show you how to maximize your existing resources to get you more staff, more money, more time, more joy, and making a bigger impact. So let's dive right in. And you'll have to excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cold, so I've got a little bit of a hoarse throat today. I'm going to do my best to bring the energy as much as my voice will allow. The first thing you need to do to have more resources in your organization is stop ignoring this super valuable resource. It's your focus. Your focus. Time is a resource, right? Where you put your time is so important. So if you want to have more resources for your nonprofit, you need to get crystal clear about where to focus your time, your energy, your expertise. Okay? So I want you to bring focus onto your radar as a critical resource that you have as a leader. And this is true for for-profit leaders as well as nonprofit leaders and everybody in your life. If you want more of anything, you need to get focused on getting more. Okay, now let's talk about where you need to focus your limited resources and especially your time and energy and money if you have it. So if your biggest issue, if the resource you're missing the most is money, you need to focus your resources on the parts of your organization that bring in money. So typically these are your fundraising efforts, and you need to get focused on doing the right kind of fundraising for your organization. You may have to reallocate some resources. You may have to take some people temporarily off programming a bit or off other parts of your organization in order and reallocate that time and energy onto the activities that are going to bring in money. If you're lacking staff, but you have money, so a lot of people are lacking enough staff in nonprofits because they don't have enough money. Fix the money problem and you can fix the staff problem. But if you're struggling with staffing, but you have money, then you need to focus your efforts on how you bring staff in and where you place them in your organization. What roles are people doing? How are you qualifying who's the right person to be on your team? If you are struggling with having enough time, often that can actually be solved by money. So if you feel like you don't have enough time in your day, first, get focused, right? So think about all the things you may not need to do. So often, especially nonprofit leaders, but I see this in entrepreneurs too, we're super busy doing things that we kind of think we should do, but we don't really have a good strategic reason to be doing it. And let me define strategic reason, meaning you have a clear goal that you're trying to achieve, and you've decided and evaluated that the activities that are most likely to achieve that goal. And so instead of having that clarity and building our to-do lists really clearly and strategically, meaning they're designed to achieve a goal, we build to-do lists of things that we just kind of think we should do, or because somebody asked us to do them, and we don't filter them through this strategic focus filter. So if you're lacking time, you need to literally take stuff off your plate that you can, and if you're not sure, take it off your plate. And if it was not appropriate to stop doing, it'll bounce back as an issue, right? So just pay attention. You can stop doing something. If you're not sure whether or not you should stop it. And then if it was not the right thing to stop, it will bounce back to your attention and you can restart it. Okay, so that's what you do if you're lacking time. And if the reason why you're lacking time is because you're understaffed, and the reason why you're understaffed is because you don't have enough money, then go back to focusing your limited attention and any other resources on bringing in the money. All right, my next tip is a warning. I want you to watch out for solving your staffing issues with interns and volunteers. Now, interns and volunteers are a great resource, but just like having more staff, they are people who need to be coordinated, led, managed, organized, inspired, and they come with risk. Especially volunteers come with a little more risk than a paid staff member, because you're not the reason why we pay staff, why we pay people to do a job, is it reduces the risk. It increases the chance that they're going to do their job in a qualified, competent way, and give their jobs the priority and attention that we need them to be given. So when we don't pay people, when they're volunteers, we actually have more risk. So they need more management. So if you try to fill your true staffing challenges with volunteers and interns, you're going to find that all of your precious leadership time and focus and attention is going to be going to manage this group, and it's not going to leave you time to do other things. So remember, as you add people, whether they're paid or unpaid, it's going to increase the management load on leadership significantly. And so many people underestimate that. So volunteers and interns are great, but they're like icing on the cake. There's something to bring on when you have an excess of leadership capacity. Then you can bring on volunteers and interns. But if you do not have an excess of leadership capacity, it's going to make the problem worse, not better. That's the resource problem. Will become worse, not better. Okay. The last thing that I have for you today about getting out of resource scarcity or resource limitations is getting more support when you need it most. So when you are really struggling, it can be hard if you are really, really resource scarce. And because we have this scarcity mentality in the nonprofit space, it can be hard to see for yourself all the things we just talked about. It can be hard to take things off your own to-do list. It can be hard to make that decision. It can be very scary all on your own to say, we're going to take away from one part of our organization and add instead to another part. So take away from a non-funding activity and focus on a funding activity. And so oftentimes we need support, peer support, professional support, coaching support, someone to see what we can't see, or someone to say, verify that the decision is a good decision, and to kind of hold your hand and say, this makes sense. Go ahead, take what feels like a risk, but is actually not, and make the change, right? So if you feel like you can't implement any of the tips we just talked about just now, then you need a person to hold you accountable, a separate person outside of your organization to help you achieve those things. But none of the things we just talked about require spending any money. It's about shifting your focus and attention to away from one thing and into another thing. It's shifting resources so that we're building more resources. And that is how you make something out of seemingly nothing. And you can kickstart your funding flywheel, which will fund your growth, which will fund having more resources. But if you don't pay attention to that flywheel, if you get into a place where you're spending time and money on things that don't bring in money to a rate, and you're not also spending the right amount of time and money on things that bring in money, then what will happen is you'll find yourself on a sinking ship because you have too much money going out and you're not focusing on bringing enough in. So often these challenges about resources come down to not having enough money. And the number one reason why nonprofits don't have enough money, and this goes for for-profits as well, is because they're not spending enough of their focus. They're not focusing enough of their resources, a great enough percent of their resources on those money generating activities. I will give you an example from the for-profit world, and I should have pulled up the exact statistics before I came live, but in for-profit companies who are growing, right? In for-profit companies, marketing activities are the things, marketing and sales are the things that lead to bringing in money. And they will spend easily 35% of their entire operating budget on those activities just to stay the same. Not necessarily to grow, but just to stay the same. So I want you to think about that and use that maybe as a benchmark for your own organization. If 35% of your budget is or more is going to, if less than 35% of your total operating budget is going towards fundraising related activities or money generating activities, then probably you are focused too little on bringing in the money, and you're going to need to reallocate some resources from somewhere else to get that funding flywheel going. That's what I have for you today. I'm Sarah Olivieri with a cold, but I hope that you were able to get some great tips out of this. If you would like a written summary of this emailed to you, as well as announcements about future trainings, live broadcast topics going forward, go to pivotground.com/sign up. There should be a link in the description somewhere, wherever you're watching this in one direction or another, and you will get that summary as well as information about upcoming trainings and activities. Till next week, see you later.